the script. Jesus flips the script. For those who have not yet entered the workforce, or those who are waiting to re-enter the workforce, or those who think that they might someday want to enter the workforce, I wish I could tell you that you're going to enjoy every job that you're ever going to have, but I will not tell you that. It is a wonderful thing to be able to say that we have enjoyed the jobs that we've had and worked at. But in life, there are times and there are situations when our responsibilities will have us doing work that we might rather not do. But we do it to provide for those that we love and for the things that we want or we want to do. The Apostle Paul spoke to the issues that Jesus faced as Jesus strove to do the will of his Father in his time. Paul said, "If I proclaim the gospel, it gives me no reason for boasting. For an obligation has been laid on me to proclaim the good news. If I do this of my own will, I have a reward. But if not of my own will, then it is in response to a higher calling, because I am entrusted with a commission. So what is my reward? Just this, that I may make the gospel free of charge. For though I am free, I have made myself a servant or a slave to all. To the Jew, I became as a Jew to win Jews. To those under the law, I became as one under the law, so that I might win those under the law. To those outside the law, I became as one outside the law to win those outside the law. To the weak, I became weak to win the weak. I have become all things to all people so that some will be saved. And I do this all for the sake of the gospel, the good news, so that I too might share in its blessing." In other words, what Paul has done and is doing is not so that he receives any recognition, but so that the message of the gospel might be given to those who need to hear a word from the Lord. This connects with the message of the Gospel of Mark for today, where what Jesus does and has done was not so that Jesus might receive recognition, but so that the message of the gospel might be proclaimed to those and for those who need to hear a word from the Lord. The text for today tells us that after Jesus had finished teaching at the synagogue and casting the demon out of the man who had come to the synagogue, Jesus left the synagogue and went to the house of Simon, Peter, and Andrew, along with James and John. Simon's mother-in-law was there in bed with a fever. They told Jesus about her. Jesus went in, took her by the hand, lifted her up, and the fever left. After the fever left her, she began to serve them food. Just as Jesus had done with the man possessed with the demon, Jesus did not do this for Simon's mother-in-law for recognition. He did it out of compassion for human suffering. It was a private setting in Simon's house. It was not a public setting where everyone could see, as had been the situation at the synagogue. But somehow the word got out. And that evening, people were brought to him from all over the city. People who were sick and people who were possessed with demons as well. Jesus healed the sick and cast out demons, and he would not let the demons speak. Night came, and the people went home, and Simon's house became quiet, and they slept and rested. The next morning, while it was still dark, Jesus got up and went out by himself to a deserted place, and there Jesus spent time in prayer. Now, this should be an example for us. If Jesus had to have a place of no distractions, where it was quiet, so that he could spend time for himself in prayer, then we too should have a place without distraction where it is quiet, so that we can spend time for ourselves in prayer with God about those things that we need to talk only with God about. Jesus went away to a deserted place and prayed. Simon and the others awakened and began to look for Jesus, and when they found him, they said, "Everyone is searching for you." Then Jesus said, "Let us go on to a neighboring town so that I, Jesus, can proclaim the message of the gospel also, for this is what I came to do." And so he went throughout Galilee, proclaiming the message of the gospel in their synagogues and casting out demons. Jesus kept doing what he had come to do. What have we come here for? And who are we working for? Are we working for ourselves or for God? There are those who do a great job of proclaiming the message of the gospel with excitement and enthusiasm. We cannot say what their motives may be. We sometimes have a tendency to say those things about people who have large congregations and large churches, that it appears to have something to do with what they want. May we never be so busy talking about God that we neglect to help God's beloved children. Just in case you missed that, I'll repeat it. May we never be so busy talking about God that we neglect to help God's beloved children. That was what Jesus did when he stopped by Simon's house and healed Simon's mother-in-law. Then he healed those who were brought there and cast out demons as well. And here we are. Now, we're not going to the synagogue to teach and cast out demons from someone who shows up there with a demon. We're not going over to Simon's house and bringing in to his mother-in-law's fever. We're not going to have a sleep-in or sleepover and wake up in the morning and go out by ourselves to a deserted place for prayer. But just like God called Simon, Andrew, James, and John, God has called us to reach out to be fishers of people. And we don't have to create the situations so that we can react out or react to them. There are people suffering all around us by no fault of their own. Churches used to be a source of help for people in need. Many are no longer able to provide help for families in need. And we understand why many people don't attend church and go out into the public places because of the pandemic. We got that. But just like Jesus, we have to flip the script on what the church does and where the church does its ministries today. When the disciples found Jesus that morning in prayer, they wanted to go back to Simon's house and continue the work that they were doing the day before, healing the sick and casting out demons. Jesus wanted those disciples to realize that there were other people in other places who were sick. And there were people in other places who were possessed by demons or evil spirits. So the task for them now was to go to those other places and help those other people who were in bondage to evil spirits. What does this say about us and to us? Do we recognize those other places where we can go to be of service to those who struggle? Do we recognize those other people who are suffering in our world? People who have lost their businesses, people who have lost their homes, people who have lost their families. We see these people in food lines from the food pantries. We see these people standing on street corners asking for help. We see these people in the faces of children that are homeless also. We see these people in places under bridges, in homeless shelters, and yes, even sleeping in parks and on sidewalks. What are we what are we as churches in this changing world of today? What are we going to do to help all those faces of those people who suffer and struggle in our world? Are we going to leave it to those other people? Or are we going to leave it to our children and our children's children to flip the script on feeding the hungry, clothing the naked, and well, even somehow providing homes for the homeless? I believe that our responsibility as human beings is to help other human beings. I believe that our responsibility as human beings is to love our neighbor as we love ourselves. I believe that our responsibility as Christians is to love God and to love each other. I believe that our responsibility as children of God is to recognize and respect every other person on the face of the earth. How will we do this? How will we make the necessary changes that we need to make? We will do this by flipping the script and doing what we can do to make this world a better place in which we live and a hopeful place for the future, not of our children, but for the generations to come. When Jesus flipped the script for his disciples, he let us know that if there is going to be a future that for our children and our children's children to live in, we have to do what? Flip the script. We can't keep doing what churches have done for many years, because they tell me that the 7 last words of a dying church is, "We never did it that way before." That should not be the message that the actions of the churches of today send out into the world. We have to be the ones who flip the script so that there is a future for all those who come after us. Amen.